So the story of Willem is that he worked in the international airlines company. I don't have to mention the name, but after that, he feel that his health deteriorated. Yeah, and when he feel his health is deteriorated, you think because of stress and all, but he find out that actually it's not because of his stress or what, but every time he fly, he feel that his health is deteriorated, and because of that, he have an intuition or a conclusion that the problem is from the flight itself. It's like that, Willem? And then you start
to go. In the beginning, it wasn't, because then I took it on myself because it fitted in the diagnose that I had a lot of stress and I had a lot of issues, and my diet might be the problem. So I turned my whole life, took care of the stress issues, and changed my whole diet and way of living to such a degree that I was meditating whenever I was free. I was in meditation centers or meditating at least 2-3 hours a day, every day for long periods, and living very healthy at the same time. And my health continued to deteriorate. So that didn't make sense. And then I could also, because I was an instructor, I also an examinator, so I was a lot in the flight simulator, seeing a lot of other crews, also in the cockpit itself. And we operated with 10 of these type of aircrafts, and I knew on certain aircraft the conditions were worse than on other aircraft. So there was a difference between the airplanes with the registration, that this is really a bad one. And that's a common thing in aviation, that when the crew arrives at destination and they're very groggy, or a lot of headache, or passengers complaining about headaches, it's always being just, then people say this was just a bad one with bad air and blah, blah, blah. That's it. It's not being related to toxic level of toxicity in the plane, of the toxicity in the air in the plane. But I could see that clearly, the distinction between the different registration. And also I always ask to the crew after an exam or after a simulator session, how is your health doing? How are you doing in the plane? Do you have difficulties reading documents in the plane, or can you concentrate well? And then I found that I was not the only one with health issues which are sort of normalized, like you see in society today. It's almost normal now that people are very tired, or have this fatigue issues, or headaches, or dizziness. It's being normalized, and then it's also because you become older, or they call it jet lag, which is an invention of the industry itself. And jet lag is being blamed on dry air and time differences, your biological clock. But the biggest elephant in the room is that you have been exposed to a serious blend cocktail of toxic components during this flight. Unknown amounts of toxins, because it's never being measured. They don't measure it. So, but it's for sure there are toxic components, and we don't know how much. We know that on some flights, 1 in 1,000 flight about on average is a so-called fume event, where a lot of these toxic components in the air are being exposed to passengers and crew. So that is also a cause why you feel very groggy after a flight. But it took for me some time before I was really sure it was not me, and I had really neurological symptoms. Very nasty, like it is a nerve gas, this organophosphate, which is an additive in the oil, which is coming in the cabin in low doses, is a nerve gas component. It has the same molecular structure as sarin, as nerve gas, actually. So your nerve system is being affected by it.
So every flight, international flight, have this toxic?
Well, now you have, before 1950, the commercial airplanes had a different air conditioning system, where the air was being taken in from outside with compressors. They had these things under the nose, and they had these big holes, and the air was just coming in by ram air from the outside. And that's being, with compressors, what being put in the cabin. But then you had these gas turbine engines, these jet engines, and then the scientists said, we can actually use, because these are bypass engines, so a lot of the air is not being used through the core engine, but it's going that's why these engines are so big. It's just actually going by the engine. It's not going through the core engine. So they said we can tap off air from the engine and then use this for air conditioning and for pressurization. So it's not a stupid idea. But then some scientists said, well, you're going to have problems because you're going to have fumes from the engine itself, which are being blended, and it's leaking because a jet engine is always leaking fumes because it's rotating. It's impossible to make a closed system. So you have to make a cooling system, an oil lubrication system, which is always a bit leaking because it's rotating so fast. But because of this, you get fumes from the combustion chamber and the engine itself coming into the air conditioning system. So they took this for granted. They said, well, this is so, this is not much, and it's a very low dose, and on the streets in the cities it's also toxic. If you measure there, it's very toxic, because of exhaust and industry and what more. But there are certain compounds in the oil lubrication system. They use certain additives which are highly toxic. These organophosphates, which are used in the oil, and these are the biggest problems actually.
So nowadays, all the aircraft still like
no. So to finish your question, there is now one new type of aircraft. That's the Boeing 787. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner is making use of another air conditioning system, the old-fashioned old design, where the air is again coming from the outside, and it's using compressors. So don't have this issue. You don't have this issue anymore of these fumes from the engine coming into the cabin. So that is a solution for this problem, particular toxic exposure in the airplane. So the 787 Dreamliner is a solution for that.